2 Peter 1:3 tells us that God has given us everything that we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of Him. I have everything.
I have everything I need. I have everything.
So hey fam, I guess what I'm going to attempt to do today is to give some ideas around how we could reimagine the real for the movie for colored girls, a movie of course adapted from the book for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. Man, a very very deep movie, a very moving movie, a very disturbing movie, but very real. And so as I try to think of what we would call a movie like this, how I could retitle it, I thought of the 23rd Psalms, and the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And so as I thought of the 23rd Psalm, and I thought of what the author must have been going through, it really brought me to this particular movie. And I want to use for the title, Though I Walk Through the Valley. It's interesting because when we think of kind of how you got to that point of being in the valley, it's a time of crisis. And when we look at the movie and when we look at the characters of this movie, we know that all of them have really experienced a level of crisis. Some of it may be relative to their own decisions. Some of it may be relative to the decisions of people around them, family members, friends. Some of it is systemic. As they deal with issues that many of us deal with even today, with poor health care, with racism, with lack of resources, with lack of information, lack of knowledge. And so, but the common denominator among them all is crisis. When we look at even the people who are who we would deem as successful, we look at a character like Joe, Janet Jackson's character, and she's a boss, right? But even in her success, she still has a need for control, a need to control everyone around her, a need to control everyone even in her household. And it's interesting that even with all the control that she thinks she has, she still finds herself in crisis in her personal relationship with her husband, who is revealed to be living a down low life, right? And has, in the end of the movie, given her HIV. And so she has to deal with that. Even in the character of Yasmin, graceful, beautiful dance teacher, inspiring the lives of young girls, and yet she has in her heart still a innocence that allows her to be taken advantage of by a guy who uses romance and friendship and turns those things against her. And ultimately, as she's raped in the movie, we're left with a person who is kind of the shell of themselves because something happened to them that she sought to try to figure out, how could I have prevented this? What could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? When in essence, just like the crisis as we think of walking through the valley of the shadow of death, sometimes there's nothing that we did wrong. It's just it just speaks to where we are. And again, living in crisis. And man, I think even the toughest character for me was watching Crystal, Kimberly Elise's character, as she dealt with working hard and being strong, adapting, being loving, as she struggled with being a mother, with being a girlfriend to her very damaged boyfriend. And even so, even outside of the abuse at home, we found her being abused even at work by Joe, which is her boss. And so even under all of that pressure, we find that she is someone that's not easily broken. But ultimately, with losing her kids, it kind of pushes her over the edge. Crisis. As we look at the 23rd Psalms, we find out that in that moment of being going through the valley of the shadow of death, that there is crisis. That there is crisis that comes from where you are at the time. There's crisis that comes from who's with you and whether or not they can truly support you as you're going through. There's crisis that from the enemies that surround you. And there's crisis from within as you try to deal with fear, as you try to deal with lack, as you try to deal with navigating this time in the valley, knowing that you may have come from, as the psalm says before, a place of having whatever you need, but now you find yourself in an area of wanting more, of needing more, of looking for more, of searching for more, while you're in this valley. Another important component of the 23rd Psalm as we think of this idea of retelling or reimagining the movie For Color Girls, as though I walk through the valley, is trust. And so as you find yourselves in a moment of crisis, you find that we have to trust in each other. And I think near the end of the movie, we start to see the characters come together and be able to share and to know that separated, it may seem like we are losing as we're going through the valley. But when we find that we can trust each other, that we can lean on each other, that we are not alone in this walk, though somebody's walk may be different from mine, that they find themselves in the valley. We're there together, and we have to trust each other in order to make it out, make it through. Another part of it is that we have to trust also in the process that we're going through, a process of renewal, of reconciliation, process of restoration, and that's hard. It was very hard to watch these characters go through their individual situations. It was difficult to not judge them for some of the decisions that they're making. But it also causes self-reflection, because when you really think of the decisions that we made in our own lives and how many of the circumstances that we've probably had to go through could have been avoided, but maybe they didn't need to be avoided. Maybe the idea of reconciliation, of restoration, means that we have to have gone through something. We have to go through this valley experience in order to be able to go to our next plateau, our next level, our next calling, so to speak. I think another thing we have to find trust in also is that what I'm going through is exactly that. That is something that I'm going through. It's not my final destination. It's not where I'm meant to be. It's something that I may be meant to experience, but it's not where I'm meant to end up. I think another thing that comes to mind when I think of for color girls, especially reimagined as Though I Walk Through the Valley. It's this idea of revelation, of realizing that that care does not eliminate or take away the evil experience that we've experienced. It allows us to move forward. It allows us to move over, to go around, whatever our way of dealing with our issues are, but it doesn't erase it. And I think that's good. I think that's important to know, is that even in the 23rd Psalms, when it says, he prepares a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, right? That evil is not erased, that we're able to find some victory, that we're able to find some ways to live, but it doesn't erase our experience. It doesn't negate what we've been through. It only enhances what we've been through and helps us to make us stronger in the end. It was really hard to try to come up with a way to reimagine a movie that means so much to our community, and who has, that really speaks to the real issues that are going on in our communities. But one of the things that it really helped me do was it really made me appreciate the women that are in my life, the Black women that are in my life. When I think about my grandmothers and my mother and my wife and my two daughters and my sister, cousins that are as close to me as anybody, it really made me love them deeper. It really made me want to just to hold them, and we don't have to talk about what's going on. I don't have to try to fix what's going on. I don't even have to completely understand, but sometimes you just need to know that somebody is not your enemy. Somebody is not attacking you. Somebody is not a part of the issues or part of the problems, because we've all got enough of those, that somebody is just here for me just because. And so, man, I haven't experienced nearly the amount of issues that some of the characters in this movie, and I hope that the women in my life haven't had to deal with some of those things to that extent. But what I want them to know is that it's just that as they go through whatever they're going through, not only do we believe that God is with us, but we certainly have to be there for each other. It's important that we understand that this walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that God uses people to protect us, that God uses people to comfort us, that God uses people to be in our lives so that we won't be afraid. And I want to be more aware and more conscious of my role in their lives, continue to be a presence, to not be an enemy, but to be a help, to not be a hindrance, but to assist wherever needed, to not be a hero, but to be able to sit patiently and quietly in those dark moments, and just letting people around you know that they aren't alone. I've enjoyed working with my peers and working with all those who have Dr. Toure, Esty, and Melanie, everybody who has helped with this particular process in this class. Thank you so much, and God bless. Love you guys.